were you popping corks yesterday? I mean, there's been people like Donald Trump saying good riddance, whereas Rishi Sunak paid tribute to her public service. Where do you stand on that spectrum?
I wouldn't say popping corks, no. Look, she's played an important role in Scotland's public life, and I think the Prime Minister was right to acknowledge that. While at the same time, she's obviously someone that we had really quite profound disagreements with. And indeed, there were, towards the end, increasingly obvious disagreements even within the SNP over the plans for gender self-ID that she was trying to ram through the Scottish Parliament, causing huge opposition. I mean, obviously, very much led by Scottish Conservatives, but also really right across the spectrum and within the SNP itself. So there is a reason why she's gone now. One can respect your political opponents and pay tribute to their role in public life, but at the same time acknowledge that there are many things that we disagree on, particularly, most fundamentally, of course, about the future of the UK. I mean, our view is that people had their say in a referendum, which was said to be once in a generation. People of Scotland decided to stay in the United Kingdom, the right decision for Scotland's economy and for the country's future. And that should be respected rather than endless calls for yet another referendum, which are only they do have a destructive effect on the Scottish economy. It does hold back jobs and living standards there. So she's someone that one can on one hand respect, but on the other hand profoundly disagree with.
We'll talk about what her legacy will be, but I suppose you could also ask perhaps whether this will feed into Rishi Sunak's legacy. A lot of people will say that his intervention on that gender reform bill will actually have contributed to her resignation and therefore to independence being deferred at least for another generation. And we're told there's rumours of a deal on the Northern Ireland Protocol to be announced perhaps as early as next week. And perhaps his legacy, even if he loses at the election next year, will be one of keeping the union together.
Well, I think that the decision that he took in terms of not accepting and blocking Scotland's plans to effectively impose gender ID, self-ID on the entire rest of the UK, it was the right decision. And it was a brave decision at the time. Lots of people in the SNP or around the leadership were saying, oh no, this will rebound on Rishi Sunak, he'll come off the worst in this. But in reality, it's Nicola Sturgeon who's been the one who's ended up going. So it was a brave decision and it was the right decision. And on the Northern Ireland Protocol, I'm not close to the negotiations that are going on and discussions that are going on. I know that there's lots of work going on to further improve the protocol so we can have smoother trade across the Irish Sea. I don't know when those will be coming out, but it all sounds positive from my point of view. And in terms of the next election, of course, we're still a fair way away from it. I think that the thing you can do as a politician is to pursue the right agenda, to pursue the things that people want you to. And I think that the sort of plan that the Prime Minister set out about cutting inflation, about getting the NHS waiting lists down and stopping the boats, crucially, is the right agenda. And so I'm proud that we are pursuing the things that people want us to pursue.
Mr O'Brien, you're here today to announce lots of very exciting and progressive use of £421 million of extra money to fund and to combat drug and alcohol misuse. Can you tell us about that plan, please?
Yeah, so we're allocating £400 million over the next 2 years to increase the number of the capacity of people to get drug treatment. And we're doing that partly because we know that drug addiction drives so much crime. It drives about half of all crime. And because we know that if people get into drug treatment, that radically reduces their likelihood that they will be out there causing chaos and causing crime. And so we're making this big investment that will mean more people in treatment, new types of treatment, and as well as being good for all the rest of us and cutting crime. Of course, it's a path out of terrible addiction for people who are trapped in it. Before I was an MP, I spent about 6 years working with people who were homeless on the street, and many of them had substance abuse problems. And some of those people are worse off than people who are in a life sentence in jail. It's just terrible to see the effect that serious heroin or crack addiction has on people. And so I'm really proud that we're announcing this extra funding. It will take the number of people in treatment up to a record high, and I hope that it will both save lives and also cut crime.
I just want to ask you finally, before we let you go, about a story that's doing the rounds front of the Times this morning about France potentially outgunning British military despite spending less on defence. Is that where we really want to be, playing second fiddle to France when it comes to all of this?
Well, it's definitely not where we are. Despite the headline of the Times, I noticed in the piece it does note that we do spend £13 billion more than France. And while it says, oh, well, the French have more frigates, the UK has 2 aircraft carriers and they only have 1. The reality is the UK is the biggest spender on defence in Europe, one of the few countries to meet that 2% defence spending commitment in NATO. We are probably Europe's leading military power, but the truth is that we want the French to spend more as well as everyone else in NATO too, because we are all working cooperatively to one end, which is to stop Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine and to deter this evil in Europe and to help the poor Ukrainians who are fighting a war only a couple of hundred miles away from where I'm standing right now. So I am proud of the investments we're making in defence. We put another 24 billion in 2020, and that's giving us some of the most modern kit in Europe because it's not just about counting people, it's about the quality of what you've got. But I'm intensely relaxed and indeed keen on other countries in Europe also spending more on defence because we're all working together in the same aim.